This is round 825 of the... It's not paying attention. No. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Caldwell. Buongiorno, come stai? Che cazzo stiamo facendo oggi?
So, Peter, you were very early this morning. Are you working on Italian time now? Is this what's happening? You just transitioned completely to Roman time. All right, councillors. The first matter is that we have a almost full complement of member councillors, with the exception of Councillor Gates, who is away today. If someone would like to move by Councillor Peter Young, seconded by Councillor Pauline Young. All in favour? Against? That is carried. We also welcome Councillor Bayldon Lumsden. It's good to have you here. We've got two start items, which is the confirmation of minutes. We might just deal with that one first. Someone like to move the confirmation minutes. Moved by Councillor Owen Jones, seconded by Councillor Vorster. Take the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. We have one other start item, which is item 6.1, and Councillor Bayldon Lumsden, having attended today, would like to move a declarable conflict of interest so that he can participate in the...
Thank you, Chair.
matter.
Yeah, it's one that came through, got the delegated authority request. I live in close proximity to the application. I asked the city solicitor at the time what the best course of action is, because some of my neighbours had raised some concerns at the time. The recommendation was to put it through committee. I've got to say, I didn't entirely know what to put in there. So the related party is me. Nature of the related party is I'm a neighbour, essentially, to the DA. Yeah.
Cool.
So can we be clear?
Yeah.
Your property actually adjoins this?
No, so not
quite. Have we got a...
So
did you have a presentation for this, Steve? Do you want to just bring up the presentation just to
I can include the street names if need, but there's Demand Avenues. Pardon me?
What did you say?
I can include the street names. We want Demand Avenues and Industrial Street, and then I live on Chifley Place, which is separated by a vegetation easement buffer.
So when you say your neighbours,
So
You'll leave?
you mean
Yeah.
I'm in close proximity to the site. Yeah.
Councillor Vorster's departing at 9:07 a.m. Thank you, Councillor Vorster.
Ciao, arrivederci.
In saying that, didn't need a presentation if
No, that's
no one
right.
else
I
wanted one.
think
but-
Councillor Young's question was more about what the...
Yes.
So
in the declaration, Councillor Butler said he's the neighbour, and I
Yes.
just want to
Just wanna
clarify
clarify.
that. To me, it doesn't appear to be a direct neighbour, and
So
I'm happy to move a procedural motion. if you like.
somewhere on the screen in Chifley Place there, you'll see
yeah,
Councillor...
so on that map is my house.
Yep.
So
one of those ones?
live in close proximity.
Okay. So, Councillor Peter Young, move a
Yeah, so
procedural motion.
I'm confident in Councillor Bayldon Lumsden's ability to retain an objective position about this, and I believe that his participation will be in the public interest, despite the conflict that exists through the proximity of his own property to the application.
Seconded by Councillor... Oh, sorry.
Can I just, so I intend to vote on it, but just to be clear, in a prior life, I was a director of a company that owned 3 properties in close proximity to this, but I no longer have any interest in that company.
Thank you. Someone like to second the procedural motion? Seconded by Councillor Pauline Young. We'll take the vote on that. All in favour? We'll call a division. Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Caldwell. Against, and Councillor Bayldon Lumsden did not vote, both because he's not a member of the committee and because he can't on a conflict. Okay. So we'll deal with the matter properly now. Councillor Bayldon Lumsden, did you want a quick presentation, or you...
I did need a quick presentation. So my neighbours' concerns were the outdoor area times, but since getting the advice to send it through committee, those reflect times that all my neighbours are comfortable with, so I didn't have any issues or concerns with it.
Cool. You will you?
Yes, I was going to move.
Moved by councillor Owen Jones, seconded by councillor Pauline Young. Anyone want to speak for or against? We'll take the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. All right, thanks, councillors. That's our only listed agenda items. We welcome Councillor Tozer at 9:09 a.m. And despite his keen interest in animal keeping, he's just missed the one listed agenda item. Nevertheless, we'll move on. Councillors, I think you will have had the development activity report circulated on your desks. So we'll just move that as a general business item, that the development activity report for the September 2022 quarter be received. I'm happy to move that. Someone like to second it? Councillor Gail O'Neill. Take the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. All right, thanks, councillors. All right, was there any other items of general business by way of motions that anyone wanted to move? Otherwise, some of you will have seen an email circulate about the Amendment 2 and 3 package, so I think we can probably do it in general business, Nick, if you're okay with that, just by way of a quick update to the committee. Some of you will have already read the advices from Richard. Oh, he is here. Sorry, mate. I thought you took the morning off because there was only one DA. Okay, so Nick, do you still want to lead this, or do you want to hand over to Richard, or?
I'll just make a couple of comments while Richard's sitting down, and then he can answer any of the...
assert your authority.
Yeah, so I think all councillors are aware that we received the decision notice earlier this month, and that effectively the minister endorsed for about half of the package to be adopted by council or to be sent forward to council for adoption. And so what Richard's team are now currently working on is looking at how we manage that half of the package versus the half of the package that couldn't be moved for adoption, and what the impact of that is, because, you know, as I understand it, you can't just directly adopt half of the package because it has implications across the other parts of the package that can't be adopted. And then the other piece of that work is some work that Richard's team is facilitating around how we then work with some key industry stakeholders, in particular developers, and also with the state government and with a facilitator to actually look at those parts of the package that haven't been adopted or haven't been recommended for adoption, to look at how we can work through those, to try to come up with some simple solutions, hopefully, so that we can come back to council, or sorry, go back to the state and then come back to council with those parts of the package for adoption. So the first part is assessing where we're at with those parts that have been recommended for adoption, and then looking to come back early next year with a report to council on that, and then also working through with the state and with some industry stakeholders around how we can progress those other parts of the package. It's kind of the key points, I think, Richard, isn't it?
Anything else, Richard, do you want to add to that? Just in terms of timing, I know there was an email that you circulated yesterday just addressing a potential timeline for...
Yeah, at the moment, the big challenge is uncoupling the parts that are not currently approved and then creating a version of City Plan that represents the approved components. There's a bit of work to do by the team to create that new version of the City Plan, so that'll take them through. I think we were looking at about February to have that work completed. There's a bit of subject to a council decision then to adopt. We would then also be doing some work with City Development to train officers up on the implementation of the scheme, and then all the comms and work that goes around actually making it go live. So we're probably looking at about March to be going live with the new, I guess, version 10 of City Plan. Alongside that, we will be continuing to engage with the state. So it was the day of the decision, essentially, we were up with the state government the next day talking to them about the way forward. We're actually at the moment preparing over the next couple of weeks some material to essentially workshop with the state. And what we're doing with that work is actually trying to address, I guess, concerns that we've heard from the state about housing supply impacts in the high density and medium density zone from the changes. So we're actually going to go and do a bit of work about comparing the 2003 scheme to the 2016 scheme and how much extra capacity has been facilitated through that version of the scheme. And we're also benchmarking our proposed tower setbacks and separations against a whole lot of neighbourhood plans through the inner city of Brisbane, as well as then the sunny coast. So we're actually showing that our proposed setbacks, tower separation arrangements, ideally we're still doing some work on this, but we think we'll be able to demonstrate that they're actually quite consistent with other planning instruments that are currently approved and used around southeast Queensland. So we're just building the narrative about a full package of information that, further bolsters our position. But we are conscious that certainly with the impact trigger in the targeted growth area, they probably don't want it to be as extensively applied, particularly for components of the targeted growth that are the sort of lower order development scale. But, we'll still work with them on that. And I suspect, look, we might end up having to find some middle ground on setbacks, but I just want to run this benchmarking exercise fresh against current contemporary instruments in Brisbane as well, and have that conversation with them about, look, what we're trying to avoid here is going out through another amendment and another round of consult. Things that, if they're only small adjustments, that we actually get the state over the line, that they can just sign off on them and we move ahead. So that's the goal, but we've got a bit of work to do with the state on those.
All right, Councillor Hamill, then Councillor Pauline Young.
Mr Chair, through you, so I'm interested in the assessment consequences that some of these sections that have been approved that you're going to have to uncouple and then incorporate into a version of city plan, and then mixed teams got to try and start assessing against that when there's other pieces that we'll talk to in the future of, is there any concerns around the ability of, as much as we've had parts approved and they go on the city plan, can we actually assess them without the other parts approved yet? Or does it make life very difficult for our assessment team with some of the things that have been approved without the other parts that talk to it? Either or.
Yeah. Through you, Mr Chair, when an amendment is made to the city plan, and whatever that looks like, I guess it could only ever be made if there is sort of clear, consistent rules, and it might not be all the rules and all the new sort of regulations that were originally included in the whole package, but whatever does come into a new city plan, I think it'll be clear enough for our assessment officers. It'll just be that there might be, depending how it all goes, there might be some things that council wanted included that won't be in there. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but once it's adopted and commenced, I'm comfortable that we'll be able to assess applications. It's obviously just not including the entire package, if that's the way it falls.
Mr Chair, maybe the question I should have put first was, are we actually required to endorse what they've come back with in a certain time frame? Like, is that legislated? Is there anything stopping us from waiting 6 months to endorse it in the hope that the rest of the package that you're looking to workshop and get sorted might get through so that it could be all done in one city plan update?
Oh, look, we could do that. I think usually it's you put your best foot forward to get it in place. I think the issue for us is we don't know, how long we'll be continuing to work on these other components. And just to be clear, the other components, you remember there's about 10 items that are basically the policy intent is supported by the state. It's just that they were interlinked with 9, 11 and 15. And so really where the focus is on 9, 11 and 15, but because of those other items being interlinked, the state at this point in time had only done a preliminary assessment and said that, at this point not approving those items. So from an assessment point of view, I guess what I'm saying, the review has been done to make sure that any of the potential interfaces or interlinks that would complicate things are not included in this current approved package. So the components that are approved are essentially good to go. And as you'd appreciate, there's a lot of work that's been done across many, many items. So the ability to actually get those other items in place, I think, is important. So we should try and get them underway. The key for us, I guess, going forward is, can we, with the other components, find a landing in the shortest amount of time possible to also get the targeted growth area uplift in place, all the other good things that are in that package. So that's what we'll be putting our best efforts forward on with the state.
Final question, Mr Chair, through you to Richard. So you mentioned about hoping to avoid the need to go back at the consultation again, but based on those conversations that have happened so far, do you see any of the sections that are left to be workshops still where you're concerned that the state might make us go back at the consultation again because of the size of, we may meet in the middle, but that middle may force us back out to consultation. So
Yep.
your level of confidence around, like,
Yeah, through the chair, at this point in time...
Probably too early to say.
Yeah, that's the challenge, is just we've got more work to do. And really for me, it's making sure that we're demonstrating from a housing supply point of view that what we've put forward still delivers, significant housing supply along the coastal corridor. Of course, we have had some modifications to building heights at Chevron and at Main Beach, also some changes at Palm Beach. Again, you will have seen in the decision notice that the policy intent of the building height item and some of the others are supported. So it's just, so to me, that those changes do make, slight adjustments to yield effectively. But on balance, what we'd be saying is that throughout the medium and high density zone, that these changes are, I think quite conservative, moderate changes that reflect a lot of work that's happened over the last 4 years, both with the community and industry, and there's substantial housing supply, additional housing supply already also bought in the market with the targeted growth area. So we're looking at the whole picture here, but we're conscious that what's clearly been of concern is the built form provisions for particularly in the high density and medium density zone. So we have to do some further work, and without knowing, if we do need to make changes then, and to what extent that's a shift in, any of that policy position that's previously been advertised, that would then determine whether or not it forms another body of work that needs to be advertised. The other issue for us is, if we are going forward with changes, do we end up having to then create additional amendments, and then do they form, what's the amendment structure look like? So what we're intending to do is come back in the new year with the way forward in terms of, we need a bit of time now to workshop and go through this with the state. But we'll be looking ideally then, if we're looking at February, to come back with a recommendation to adopt version 10 of City Plan. We'd also be looking to come forward with how we see those remaining items being carried forward.
so, apologies, Mr. Chair. I know I said last question, but Richard's just prompted another one. So there could be a conversation in the new year about what we're expected to be dealt with in amendment packages 4, 5 and 6. The conversation may turn to, do we proceed with that, or do we wait and just start the new city plan process that we're getting very close towards?
Through the chair, I think there's two things to consider there. There's the balance of the city plan program, which is all of the sequence of amendments that we've got lined up for the current city plan. The other question is then thinking ahead to 2026 and a conversation about a new city plan. What work do we need to do leading up to that? So certainly, we're starting bodies of work that are technical studies, but it's, actually, I guess, a future decision for council about what that new city plan process looks like. But we're a few years away from, we'll have to start thinking about it, but, with 2022, that's 2026. But as you know, with statutory processes, we've got steps to follow.
So I started yesterday in my first planning meeting and was hearing about amendment package 2 and 3 being all finished with soon. It's 3 years later, so 3 years goes very quick. Anyway, we'll wait for the new year and have that conversation further.
I think there's about 518 days until the next local government election, so that period of time is going to evaporate quickly.
It'll be,
and that's March 2024.
Or earlier.
Or earlier. That evaporates. That'll evaporate very quickly, Chair, and it'll be interesting. It can wait to the new year with it, but a lot of the studies we're doing, a lot of the work we're going to possibly do towards either amendment package 2.5, 3.5 to deal with what's left, and then 4, 5, 6, and all the consultation and statutory requirements. If we're going to roll over into a new city plan that's only 3 years away and then have to repeat all that consultation statutory requirement again, why double up?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're certainly entering that window. That's exactly what
That's
Richard's
what I'm
saying,
saying,
and it's regrettable because, you know, we could have knocked this over quite a while ago, and there would have been a more meaningful window of time for us to use for other quick fixes. I mean, when we were elected in 2012, there was an amendment package that was about to go through. We decided that at that time it was better to stop that and do a new scheme. Effectively, the decision that will probably be made at the pointy end of, or the end of this, the life of this city plan. So at some point there'll be an amendment package that we have to contemplate whether it happens or it gets wrapped into the next process. So. Councillor Pauline Young, apologies for the delay.
No, that's quite all right. And you're chairing the meeting, so my question is probably either through the chair or to either one of you. Are we going to have some sort of, I guess, baseline media that we can do on this? Because as the conversations I've had with you recently about, we've got a lot of community groups out there that are now, I guess, throwing around that idea that we're trying to hide things from, that we're not transparent, that there's a lot of skullduggery in that going on, and that this city's actually withholding it, so withholding information. And I just think, yes, yeah, oh, very much so. It was a big conversation at the last 2 progress meetings that I've had for 2 different groups.
Well, I would say that I have never seen a more transparent and visible process in relation to city plan or amendments. And I think it's been noted as being an unusually transparent and highly interactive process compared to what the state government may have previously seen. And we made a deliberate effort at the start of this process to go out to consultation and then to meaningfully listen to that feedback and make change. And that's exactly what we did. I'd be very interested in anyone who has specific questions. We would be able to answer them with the oodles and oodles of information that they actually have. But we've been very transparent about our position on things.
I don't think there's so much questioning that as in questioning as why isn't it progressing, and as a local government, are we delivering to the state what we need to deliver to the state? So, and obviously with any sort of media, we say defer back to our chair. But if there was some sort of, you know, general, these are the things that we're still having to deal with, or something very, very beige, I guess, but is actually going to be a consistent message rather than, you know, whether 14 of us are delivering 14 different responses, or whether there's, you know, something quite beige that we can all, you know, be consistent on our feedback to our communities.
Well, maybe, Nick, if you could prepare just a couple of paragraphs that wrap up where we're up to, that might be helpful.
Oh, I mean, and look, I'd greatly appreciate that. I don't know about my other colleagues, but I just don't want it to be, like, we're all very defensive of the process and we know how much work's gone into it, and we also know that the state's the handbrake at the moment, but it's actually being able to be consistent with our messaging going out so that our community is actually aware there's nothing more we can do other than meet what they're requiring us to meet.
I think there's no doubt that the community disappointment has gained some traction.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
I think at the start of the amendment process, there's no doubt there was some hesitation and reservation about what we were doing. By the end of the process, the community was saying, bring this on, because they then were able to look at a balanced outcome and say that it had a whole heap of good things that we were delivering that were directly in response to community concern that had been raised over many years. So the questions that have been asked of me is, well, if there's too much change from the state, how are we going to have visibility over that, and what's the process going to be? So we're not going to know that until we know the magnitude of the change, because there's different mechanisms. I mean, they could condition a couple of these things next week and we'd be away.
Yep.
If they say, no, this is what needs to happen and it's a major change, then we have to alter that.
Look at that process again. Yeah.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. I think one of the things in our favour is the state actually coming out and stating some of the reasons that they don't want to approve these is that things have changed over the last couple of years in the housing shortage, and that we might be, they're fearful that we might be holding back on what we need to deliver on the coast, and that's come out in the media, and I think that that's been really good for us, because I think that the general public can see that it's the state is saying this, and they know what that means. That means that they want us to, supply more density, height, and all that. So I think that's been in our favour. But it'd be good to have, as Councillor Young said, I would appreciate, because I've got a few groups who ask a lot of questions as well. But at the moment, they seem to be, some of my groups are zooming in on the state rather than us, which is good.
Okay, so a couple of little actions there, which will be good. Any other matters of general business for discussion? Otherwise, we'll close the meeting at 9:30 a.m. Thank you all.